against this right back, Charlie's definitely.
There's always just that active red back defending. I think it's like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Come on. Let's go, people deluded. I'm back again. What are you saying, lad? Lovely to have you back on the platform. Finally getting it sorted, man. What are you telling me?
I'm good. It's a pleasure to be on, and I always love seeing your intro, man. It always makes me laugh. It's so funny. The bit at the end when you're piled on from everyone, and you come out at the end, you're like, "Come on, this is sick. I like it."
Appreciate that, my guy, man. I don't score many as a fullback, so I have to keep reminding everybody of these things, man. I'm sure Tavares would do the same. Let's get straight into it, man. What did you make of the game against Bournemouth on Saturday? Obviously, it was a good game.
I thought it was a very classy performance. It's one of them ones where away from home, we've still yet to concede a goal. We're putting up these performances where I don't know. We're bringing it to the opposition. We play in a much more like controlled way than at home. We seem a little bit emotional. Away from home, we scored early, and then for the rest of the game, we were laid back, feet up. It was quite a relaxed game. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, and I wish every game was like that. To be fair, because I don't know, they seem to just do exactly what Arteta asked them to do, and we got the job done. And we could have been taking Saka off at the 50th, 60th minute, but we allowed him to get a little injury. But he was in training today, so I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah, man, you can't have everything, man. We got to see Smith Rowe. We got a clean sheet. We scored 4 goals. It's almost like Saka has to act like he's dying and his legs falling off before he gets subbed. But we love the gaffer. So, yeah, man, you're fully making sense. I think what I would say would probably be the best thing of that game would actually be the reception Kai Havertz got, not just from the fans, but also his teammates taking the penalty. Do you think he's arrived now? Obviously, we don't know, but do you think he's arrived? Do you think now you're going to see an uptake in performance? Do you think he looks confident now?
Nah, I think it's definitely too early to say that. And I don't think that goal is just going to be all of a sudden like snaps his fingers and then Havertz is back to his Leverkusen self. I think it's going to take time, but what is important is that he kicks on from this. So we need to see just that little extra 10% from him, a little bit more strong in the duels, a little bit more convincing in front of goal. And then if he gets another goal, then I think we'll start to see him back to his confident self. This will definitely go a long way towards that, but there's still some way he has to go. It's not going to just magically turn him into the best attacking midfielder in the league, but it's good to see. And I think I just love that aspect of the club. I love the way the fans treated the players. Facts. And I think certain teams don't value that sort of sentiment as much. And hopefully by persisting with him, it's going to come good, because there's a reason why Arteta spent 60 million down the drain. Kai Havertz scores again.
I like the play on words. Obviously, I agree with you. But when I look back in the summer, obviously David Raya came in. I got the rhetoric behind that. You challenged Ramsdale. You could be potentially better than Ramsdale. Timber, unfortunate about his injury, but you could see what he brings to the table. Don't need to explain what Declan Rice brings to the table. Kai Havertz, for me personally, it was more of a thing where I don't think he's a bad player. I don't necessarily think he's amazing, but I trust my manager who knows more about football than me. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he thinks he can save him and stuff like that. What have you actually personally made of Kai Havertz in an Arsenal shirt? And why do you think he's been so slow to hit the ground running?
I think a lot of the reason why people have been so negative about him has been a little bit because they're still viewing him as an attacker. Whereas Ødegaard's only scored 1 non-penalty goal this season, before that last game, he had 0 assists. So he had 1 goal, 0 assists going into that game. But no one was mentioning 007 for Ødegaard. No one was saying, oh, he's not scoring, getting enough assists. Whereas with Havertz, it was constantly like, oh, this guy was a striker last season at Chelsea. Why is he not scoring every game? But he's come into the position that Xhaka was playing, but he's not being judged as a midfielder. If we sign someone like Caicedo and he was playing, no one would be expecting the goals and assists. So I don't think that you can just excuse the fact he's been poor in front of goal, because I think he has. And I do think in midfield, at times he can be a little bit more direct, a little bit stronger. But when people say like, oh yeah, why are you bringing up his tackling stats? Why are you bringing up his dual stats? Because he is a midfielder at the end of the day.
Needed in a midfielder, yeah.
If we signed a player like Paqueta, for example, these type of players, people would be viewing those things. But because it's Havertz, because people say he doesn't score enough, now we're viewing him on goals. as I say, we need more of that. But still, he's not been as bad as some people have been saying. But also, he does have that, the way he plays, the way he's not so intense in anything that he does, can be a little bit frustrating as a fan, especially if things aren't going our way.
I think you're bang on the money with that. I think two things that before Havertz even kicked the ball for Arsenal is that, you don't quite know his best position. Right now he's playing as a midfielder. He's one of them that can play everywhere, but ain't really grabbed the role, definitely in the Premier League. As you said, he was playing as a false nine. He's not exactly the most clinical player. And obviously his ex-Chelsea pass, he was kind of written off before he was given a chance. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, I would have said sign Kai Havertz. The gaffer did it. We're at where we're at. So I think you're bang on the money. And I think you're bang on the money as well with touching on the other aspects. Now, obviously, I want him to get goals, get assists, dictate tempo of the game and all of these sort of things. But you can't negate the dirty aspects of football. And I think he does do that. I think his manager would have an appreciation of that. And I think his teammates. I do think, with his introduction, filling the hold of Granit Xhaka, and obviously Zinchenko wasn't fit at the start of the season. I still think he's trying to build up relationships on that left-hand side. He's simply going to just have to get on with it, bro, man. How do you feel about our midfield in general? Because obviously if Partey and Rice, Rice are coming back from a back injury, Partey's back in training. Do you think we still need a midfielder? Do you where are you at with the midfield? Because you could argue Arteta signed Kai Havertz and Rice to be this new look midfield.
Well, I also think what's interesting is I think Arteta signed Havertz with the knowledge that Partey was still here. So in big games where we needed a little bit more structure in midfield, I think he would have wanted Partey, Rice and Ødegaard in midfield. But then in games like, I don't know, your Fulhams, these type of games where we're trying to break down a team, we don't need Partey and Rice. That's too defensive. That's where we need a Kai Havertz
who can be a bit more luxurious going forward.
Make late runs into the box, get his head on it, make those little triangles on the left-hand side. So I think a lot of what Havertz has been judged so far, the attacking side, we need to give him time. And I'd definitely not say we need another player in that position, especially considering we have Vieira and Smith Rowe, who's hopefully coming back into things. But yeah, if you look at it from an objective point of view, that is still our weakest position at the moment.
I'm with you, man. I don't think we need it. Me personally, I do think in the next year or so, we might need another number 8 to give us something different and potentially a 6, because I don't expect 2 of the 3 of Jorginho, Partey and El Nene to be here in 18 months. I could be wrong, but it just, Partey, for example, he's contracted until 2025. If we're not going to hear in the next few months around a new deal, similar to Xhaka, they've written that off already. El Nene's a great player, a great guy around the team, but we're moving away from that. And Jorginho's at an age where maybe he wants to go back to Brazil or Italy or try a new experience or play more first team football. So they're kind of intermediate sort of things. I think you're right. You touched on 2 players. Go on.
I was just going to say, the truth is as well, we're at a stage now where people are good players that we enjoy are going to have to be sacrificed. That's what happened with Ramsdale. No one really looked at Ramsdale and said, that was, no one looked at those players and said their specific weak points. But we don't really have any weak points. So now you have to look at Ramsdale and go, but could Raya get you 2 or 3 more points a season? Could we have won the title with Raya instead of Ramsdale? Yeah, quite possibly. So we're going to have to make sacrifices. People won't necessarily like that. But to win games, Pep Guardiola wasn't being pally with his second goalkeeper. You have to sign the best players.
I think you're bang on the money. And when you just said that with Pep Guardiola, it takes me back to when he kind of just got rid of Joe Hart. People are we doing? He's a legend. He's this, that, and the other. And I know at the time he's playing Claudio Bravo, but you have to be emotionless. And I think for Arteta, you can, you're going to get criticized. You're going to get praised according to result. That's the industry. But I do think fans kind of want 2 sides of the coin. You call for ruthlessness. You call for tough decisions. And when your fan favorites are getting, falling on the opposite side, there's issues. Now, of course, I feel sorry for Ramsdale. I like the guy, signed a new deal, helped us get top 4. I do feel a bit sorry for him. But do we care about individual feelings or the collective? Obviously, I want to see Arsenal perform. And at the end of the day, it's Mikel Arteta's job on the line. Nobody's going to care about these players. In general, I know Arteta's the guy and he's in a unique position, but it's always the players. When you win, when you lose, it's always the manager. He needs to protect his job first. Arteta will make mistakes, but I don't think he's putting players out there that ain't going to get us a result. And obviously, I don't think Raya is necessarily much better than Ramsdale, but I do like what Raya brings to the table. In particular, his calmness, added focus. I think he's very cool at collecting from crosses. And in the last few games, I've been deep in it. He's almost like a centre-back in the build-up play. Obviously, Ramsdale can do that, but I don't think his level of focus throughout 90 minutes would obviously make that happen. You touched on something I want to ask you, because it's something that's been like rattling my brain. You touched on our away form. Now, there's somewhat of a mad contrast. We're boring in a good way away from home. It's perfect performances. At home, it's bare drama. Why do you think that's the case? Like, what is it? Is it a bunch of things? Is it one thing? Like, it'd be nice to hear someone else's thoughts on this.
I don't know. Is it some like sick thing with North London Forever that's just getting the players to be like too excited? It
It's
is
crazy,
weird.
man.
I think it comes from a little bit, just I guess like the pressures of playing at home. I think so. Obviously, you know the type of thing where guys got a ball on the box and people are saying shoot. So when Saka's in a 1v1 situation at home, maybe he's not thinking about taking a 1-2. Maybe he's thinking, all right, let me get the crowd on my feet. Let me try and do them one on. So maybe it comes down to a little bit of that. And I think just those sort of things add up all over the pitch where a player's a little bit more emotional. Maybe a player's trying to get to goal too quickly rather than away from home where we're just so calculated. We just seem to do exactly what Arteta says. Because it does. Away from home, it looks like that's exactly what Arteta envisioned on the pitch. And then at home, sometimes you think like, this is chaos ball. We're like, this is cool and it's fun to watch, but like, what are we doing at times? Like,
It's fun to watch after the game. During 90 minutes, I don't know, man. Like against Spurs and Man United, I was all over the place. I do like at home, and even Fulham the last 2 years as well. I do like at home. One thing I give us, we literally don't give up until the end.
Yeah.
But I think just adding on what you're saying, I think it's a mixture of us being on the front foot. As much as I feel the atmosphere is positive and it gives us a new lift and boosts up players, I do think, not that it has a negative effect, but there's another side of the coin in that there's probably an element of complacency there, really, because at home, it's like going into somebody's house, isn't it? You're going to be a bit more respectful going into someone's house. You're not going to put your feet on sofas and stuff. So I think that kind of goes against us. I'm pretty sure I speak for you as well, where we need to find some consistency and bring some of what we're doing at home and away and the good points and just marry them together, really and truly. You're fully spot on. What have you made of the start to the season? Because Arsenal fans, I'm pretty sure you've got Arsenal fans supporting friends. It's all positive or it's all negative or man. And the facts are we got 17 points. It could be better. It could be worse.
It's weird because we do look at it and think like the points dropped are so stupid because we really, really should and could be on 21 points and have not dropped any points this season. But the truth is we're 1 point behind Man City and now we have the opportunity to go top at home where this is our best opportunity to beat Man City. They don't have Rodri. We are arguably the best we've ever been. I know we've not been performing as well as maybe during our peak last season, but we're a lot more controlled in the way we play. We're a little bit less loose. And I think we rely on certain players a little bit less. I think it's weird because like after some of the draws, I've been thinking like, what is going wrong? What is going wrong? But now if you take a step back, you think like, yeah, we are 1 point behind top place. And we have the opportunity to beat City. And that's massive for us. What is really funny is if we do beat City and Aston Villa, I think they're playing like Everton or Luton or something, Aston Villa would go level with Man City. Yeah.
That's why you can't draw conclusions already in the season, man. Although a week's a long time in football. You're right, man.
But yeah, so I think the season, especially considering the away game against Brentford, which we played a second team and we dispatched them nicely, it's been a good start to the season. And we kind of spoke at the end of last season about burning out. I think we've managed it so far this season where we're not even really out of second gear and we're still...
And had to cope with injuries.
Yeah, exactly.
You're bang on the money there. I think, I definitely think we could do a lot better. I definitely am quite angry that we've dropped 4 points essentially from winning positions against Spurs and Fulham just because of the obvious, but also for me anyways, it's quite sad that we have to fight Manchester City, this juggernaut of a team, and Pep Guardiola. You near enough have to be looking at 90 odd points, obviously however the season pans out, it pans out, and you have to chase perfection in it. And I just feel like even looking back at last year, no matter how much praise I have for City, I feel like we had the Prem in our hands and we dropped it. So that's the sort of self-capitulation we need to go against. And when I look at even games we've won, more so at home, like there's been elements of things that I've been upset about that were in the Fulham and Spurs game, but obviously we got the result, like the Man United game, for example, on the transition, just like against Spurs. And also the fact of against Man United, we retaliated very quickly when Odegaard scored. And then that kind of happened to us against Spurs. So I just think we need to be a bit more street smart. I agree with you in that I don't feel we're at our optimum. I think we need to get into third and fourth gear. I think naturally that's going to happen. Teams have quite kind of sussed out how we like to play. Obviously, there's some new players. Arteta is making little tweaks to the system to make us unpredictable. So I'm not complaining, really. As I said, it could be better. It could be worse. We're at where we're at, really. You kind of touched on it. What's your feelings going into the Manchester City game? Because me, bro, I'm nervous, man. They've had our number. The only place they can't beat us is Wembley. Like it's Man City, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm never confident against Man City. It is what it is. They've been really bad last 2 games. Honestly, they've been so poor. But it's Man City. They can step up. It's nice to know that they don't have players like Gundogan, and I assume they don't have De Bruyne going into the game. So Gundogan, De Bruyne, Rodri, these are 3 of the players that over the past 5 years has caused us so much trouble. We're coming up against the
Especially
midfield.
Rodri.
Yeah, we're coming up against a midfield probably of like Kovacic, Nunes, Phillips, these type of players. It really, I hate to say it, but if we don't win this game, then we shouldn't be thinking ourselves as title contenders because we have to be able to win this game. It's a stressful one, isn't it? And I just hope all of our players are fit to play because so many times in recent years, you'll have a late party dropout, you'll have a Jesus dropout last minute. So, and I just want us to come there or to come at home with our strongest team. And I want us to play our strongest team as well. I spoke to a few people the other day who were talking about playing Tomiyasu to show respect to Doku. I think we've got to start Ben White. I think you've got to start your strongest team in the biggest games of the season. And if Ben White is playing on the same side as Saka, they're going to have all sorts of problems there too. So they're going to have to show us respect as well.
I think you're spot on there, man. And I think it's going into that game. It's one where I'm happy I'm not Mikel Arteta because I do get the logic with Tomiyasu. He's a lot stronger 1v1, although last season he made a mistake. But I just feel football's about relationships. Benjamin White, Saka, and indirectly Odegaard. That's one of our strongest partnerships / trios. As you said, we've got to play on the fact that we're at home. We've got to play our strongest team. And, you know, we've got to have that healthy respect for Man City, but we've also got to show what we're about. Do you think this is the best or worst time to play City? Because, you know, they're going to be reeling after a defeat. As you said, the season's been a bit slow. It could potentially be seen as a treble hangover, or is it the best time because they've lost?
Yeah, there's definitely the side of it where they're a wounded animal, but I think part of it is just they're right now because of the players they don't have available. They're not as good as they are at their best, and so I would say it's the best time to face City. If we lose, it's just going to be really, really deflating because this is the best time to play City. If we can't beat them now, when can we beat them? Obviously, there's so much more to a title race than just playing a single team. But last season, losing at the Emirates was the start of the downfall. Obviously, there were the Liverpool game, the West Ham game, all of this that came after it. But the thing that really turned it was the game at the Emirates. Had we have won that, I think we'd have gone on to win the title. I don't think anyone argues against that.
I think you're bang on, man. I think for the players, not that I can tell them anything, but I'd say play the game, not the occasion. Like, I think even if we win, it doesn't mean anything. If we lose, it's not that it doesn't mean anything, but it doesn't really mean anything. I would say where we're talking about fighting for a title, you've got 2 options, in it. You have to be trying to get 3 to 4, ideally 6 points off a team like City, kind of what you've seen Liverpool do. Or, you know, in the other 36 games, excluding the 2 against City, you need to near enough be perfect. And we haven't done that so far. I don't think anyone, even Pep Guardiola, would say his team could do that. So you're kind of in a double whammy, really. The only thing that concerns me about the City game is the fine margins, because I think I've seen enough to suggest that we can compete. There's going to be games you're going to have to take punches. I think in the middle third, we're one of the best teams in Europe, really. I think Arteta showed me he can plan to nullify a midfield. It's just a defensive third and obviously the final third. Are we going to be clinical enough? Are we going to be prone to individual mistakes? And I would say for Mikel Arteta, based on the game last season at the Emirates, it was quite even until Pep Guardiola showed why he's Pep Guardiola when he moved Bernardo Silva from left back to right wing. So these are the things I'm looking at from Mikel Arteta. I hope Partey's back, and obviously he's in training. I don't know if he plays against Lens, so I'm all for it, man. Do you actually genuinely think we can win the league? Genuinely?
Yeah, I don't see there's any reason why we can't. We showed it last season. In theory, we've only got better. And as I say, I don't think we're at our best yet. But I do think this City game is going to tell us a lot about this team, because I don't see us winning at the Etihad, especially when they got their players back. Them at the Etihad is an unbelievable team. You just cannot beat them.
Considering they got no fans there as well, it is quite incredible from them, really.
And yeah, I do think we can win the league, but a game like this is where you prove that. And
Facts.
yeah, and like the Anfield game last season, had we won that, that would have shown everyone that we were title winners, and we would have gone on to win the title. So we've started to conquer the Chelseas, Uniteds, the Spurses with relative ease. We've not lost again against them in quite a long time. Now we need to start doing it against the Liverpool and the Man Cities.
And I think you're right there. And I think that's what I mean when I say I think we need to be a bit more street smart, because I do think very rarely are we perfect. I think our perfect performances for me, Bournemouth, definitely when we went last down to 10 men against Crystal Palace, basically all the away games so far. I think when we're at the Emirates and we win, you know, it's not that I'm trying to cherry pick and find things, but it's like I only look at them things because you don't get away with that against Liverpool at Anfield. You don't get away with certain things at certain grounds. And I do think them things last season ultimately came back to bite us on the arse. Like I've always said, unpopular opinion, I do think it's a big factor how we ended last season, but I do think there was many games before that where we dropped points or made it harder for ourselves, where ultimately, you know, that kind of showed me that we weren't quite ready. I do like the upward trajectory we're on. I do like what we're doing, but if I have to judge us on title contenders, then naturally I have to be a bit more harsher for us. Kind of going back to what we were speaking about, because I kind of skipped over when we was talking about Havertz. What have you made of Fabio Vieira this season?
I like him, but I still just don't think that midfield suits him. I think in our midfield, we do need to value physicality just because of the way we play. We need to win the duels, as Arteta says, we need to win the second balls. And he's given us more of that this season. But then I watch him with Havertz, and there's so much. Put it this way, if you combine both of those two, you get a really, really good player.
Yeah,
for
you'd
that
have a really decent player still.
You need Fabio Vieira's final ball, and against low blocks, I think Fabio Vieira is perfect for that because he's able to unlock the defence. But in games that are a little bit more stretched, like at Goodison Park, I think Fabio Vieira struggles with the physicality sometimes.
Gets a bit lost,
even the game against Spurs, I thought he didn't really impact the game as much as I'd like. And it's not his fault because it's just his physical limitations. He's not a fast or strong player. And no matter how much he bulks up, to be fair, I don't think he will be a fast or strong player. But that's why I see Havertz sometimes, and I think like you have the physical profile where if you can sort out a few things that are going wrong, then we've got a really, really solid
decent
midfield.
player, yeah.
But what I will say, I'm not ruling off Fabio Vieira yet, because Ødegaard, when he first joined for the first 6 months, people called him passive, people called him weak and slow.
They wanted Buendia over him.
Yeah, even 12 months into him signing, people are saying he's not scoring enough, he's not doing this. Fabio Vieira contributes a lot of goals and assists to us in not many minutes. So put it this way, the only reason why he's not in the team is because we've got a player of Martin Ødegaard's quality ahead of him. So in games that we can rotate him, yeah, stick him in the team and let him show what he can do. But for now, I wouldn't have him in the starting 11, but not really through fault of his own.
Would you make a Smith Rowe?
It's a weird one. I think he's showing promise, but we need to see more from him to justify him being in the starting 11. And I think right now is the perfect opportunity for him to do that before Havertz gets too comfy. He needs to say, look, hold on a minute. Havertz is doing this. Havertz, why are we celebrating all these little penalties? Why aren't I getting the penalties? Why can't I give myself a chance to prove? I thought he was all right in the game against Brentford. Showed glimpses of brilliance, but we just need to see more consistency with him. And Arteta's saying things like about him not being fully fit and stuff. So I don't know if that's down to him or just down to circumstance, but hopefully he has I think he has the potential to offer a lot to this team. I don't think he will ever be a starter for us, but I think he has the potential to offer a lot for us, especially in the Champions League. I think later on this year in the Champions League, he could bring something to certain teams.
Keeping up the theme with Highlanders, what do you make of Reece Nelson and Eddie Nketiah so far this year, bro?
I thought it was a shame Reece Nelson didn't start actually against Bournemouth. The last two games, I thought he was going to start in
North London derby as well.
I know, I really did. I really didn't like the setup against Spurs in the North London derby. I think it's because Arteta thinks Nketiah is a little bit better off the ball than Nelson, and I think his work rate's a little bit better. But Jesus is so good in central areas. I think you kind of need him there. I think Nketiah lets off the defensive pair. They get a much easier game when Nketiah is there. And again, with Nketiah, it's just about his own limitations. No matter how much effort he puts in, he won't have the technical quality of Jesus. He's almost reached his own peak, his ceiling, which is he's squeezed every ounce out of it. But then I watch Jesus and I think like he can do things that you just can't do, unfortunately. Reece Nelson, again, is a little bit in a similar situation to Smith Rowe. I was surprised that he didn't get the opportunity when there was no one on left wing. And he was really good against Brentford?
Yeah. I think the game he scored, he had a good game. He was one player of the match.
And had a good game in general. So I was surprised he didn't get the opportunity against Bournemouth. But I guess Arteta sees more of them than us, so it's fair enough. And Nketiah, I thought Nketiah and Jesus were better that game, but we weren't actually, we were really, really clinical in the final third that game. Every chance we just seemed to turn into a goal scoring opportunity. So I don't know how good like the plan was, like the system, or if we just played really well on the day. But yeah, Reece is always there, and I think it's a shame that he didn't get more of an opportunity when Martinelli was out.
Why do you think Arteta seems to persist with Nketiah through the middle and out of recent put Jesus out wide?
As I say, I think it's because off the ball, Nketiah works harder. I think he presses better. He's a little bit maybe tactically smarter than Nelson. But the problem is with Jesus, Nketiah and Saka, you've got three players who don't really offer any threat in behind and aren't really going to... Jesus maybe a little bit, but aren't really going to try and run at the defender. Saka typically goes inside more often or gets doubled up and goes for a 1-2, whereas Reece is the type of player who will isolate a fullback and go past them. So I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but I think a lot of it comes down to just trust. I think he trusts Nketiah at this point because even though maybe he's not providing the goals and assists, he knows he's going to get exactly what he wants with Nketiah.
I think with what goes for Eddie Nketiah, I think Arteta just likes you from a human point of view. And I think that's testament to Eddie and his upbringing. And that's fair enough. That goes for every workplace. I do think Eddie Nketiah is harshly treated by sections of our fan base.
I do agree
Again,
with that too.
yeah, like you're allowed to be criticized and you're allowed to be praised. But obviously, when it goes beyond the point, like we get it. You'd obviously want a more glamorous player as a number 14. Of course, you know, you want a more glamorous striker. But I think Eddie Nketiah has gone from a player that's been on the peripheral to somewhat as a genuine rotation option. And I'm never going to say strikers should not be clinical, should not get goals, because we could go from being a team that got 80 odd goals to 100. But I don't think goals are necessarily the most important thing per se in what Arteta, beyond the obvious, demands from a striker. And I think Eddie Nketiah, he's starting to develop the other facets of his game. As you said, he's kind of hit a ceiling per se. I don't think until he starts to score goals consistently, you know, he will get to a certain level. Where you at with bringing in a striker then? Because yeah, some would argue, you know, a next striker could give us something, especially more physically, or allowing us to be a bit more direct. Some of our fans think we're a bit too scripted in the final third.
I guess I keep going back to the same situation, but it's a bit like the Ramsdale and Raya situation. It's that no, we don't desperately need a striker, but also we need more solutions to the questions that are being posed of us. Teams will
That's a
see the
great
way we
analogy
play.
still.
We keep. I guess last season, this is one of the reasons why we tailed off, because teams have gone, right, Arsenal have one way of playing. That's why Arteta's signed some different profiles to bring into the team. But still, we don't really have the ability to chuck balls into the box when we need to. So that's why I think Ivan Toney, if he's available in January for 60 million, I don't think I'd go as high as 80 million, but if he's available for 60 million, then I think that's just a massive opportunity, especially if we're right up there for the title. That's a player who offers something so different to Jesus. Unfortunately, it would knock Nketiah out of the firing line, but again, you've got to take sentiment out of the picture and think of who will contribute more points towards a title. And I think Toney is that guy, and in certain situations will be so valuable for us.
Obviously, it's a bit tricky probably poaching him off Brentford mid-season because they probably want him. Obviously, his contract's running down. He's got new agents. But I'm with you. I think when you look at Ivan Toney's metrics and his numbers and his heat maps, he's obviously a very different player, but he is quite similar to Jesus and Eddie in what a striker is demanded of him, the Mikel Arteta system. And I just like his hunger. And as I said, obviously, he probably won't get 20 league goals. He's going to be starting in January, but he's a 20-goal a league striker sort of thing. And that can take us from 80 goals to 100. That turns some defeats into draws, some draws into victory. Ultimately, it gets us closer to City in a day and age where fine margins make the massive gains in this. So I'd be all for that. Obviously, as you know as well, bro, January is a very techie time. Even if we sign Toney, and I know there's rumors around with signing Toney, Eddie Nketiah could go over there. Me personally, it's a bit like Ramsdale if he wanted to leave. None of you can leave until the end of the season. If you want to leave at the end of the season, great. Yeah. But there's a lot of football. We need to do what we're doing. Moving on this, though, because obviously we're being a bit disrespectful to the Champions League. We've been focusing on City. Where are you at with Lens, man? Because we started our Champions League campaign great against PSV. It's our second game week. Obviously, it's a week that we're going to have to manage our players. Where are you at on the eve of tomorrow, then?
I don't know how much the players' fitness is like, so I don't know how much playing them in this game would affect the City game. But in all honesty, I would probably rest most of our first team. I'd play like the players who've played less often, maybe like Gabriel, because he had a few games off at the start of the season. I think, put it this way, our depth is now strong enough where you can see these games, and it's not disrespectful to rotate. It's not disrespectful to bring Fabio Vieira, Smith Rowe in, your Trossard, your Reece Nelson. These guys have warranted starts in these games, and Lons aren't doing very well this season. But even still, I wouldn't play like Sego Jr., who played versus Brentford, but we've definitely got at least like 8 players who could come into the fold, like a Jorginho. Why is bringing Jorginho into Lons, giving Declan Rice a rest? That's absolutely respectful. He's a full Italy international. He's won Champions League, World Cups, etc. So yeah, there's no reason why you can't play those sort of players. The only position I guess we can rotate less is a little bit because of defensive injuries, but even still, we've got Kivior, we've got Tomiyasu, Gabriel should be all right, and then either maybe one of Ben White or Saliba to come in. But yeah, I'd rest the most important players. But apart from that, there's definitely a lot of players who can come in to take their positions.
See, I'm a bit conflicted, man, because on one hand, I agree with you. I think we can make some rotations. I think Arteta has to trust his squad. Which
I don't think he will, though. What I'll say is I don't think he will.
And that's what I'm going to say, bro. Like, I don't think it's bad if he doesn't, because we've only got 3 points in the Champions League. I kind of want to just qualify from this. I hear what you're saying about Lens. And what scares me and makes me want to rest players, like I would probably play Declan Rice because I don't want to risk Partey, because Lens are quite a physical side. But if we don't get 3 points, we're making it more tricky for us. For me, I'm of the belief, let's confirm qualification from this. Then by all means, obviously Ramsdale could start and do well. But Ramsdale, you can make your Champions League debut. Young players from Haylen, you could be on the bench. But we respectfully to Lens, they did finish second last season. This season, they ain't done well. We should have a squad, like you said, where we can make rotations and do well. You'd imagine Trossard's fit. I think everybody, apart from obviously Timber and Martinelli, have trained, so they should be all right. And we've got to prepare our players for this. If we can rest Saka, I'm all on resting Saka. But then again, I want 3 points. I want 6 points.
I'll tell you who I would probably start that might even start against City, Kai Havertz. I think this is a good opportunity to maybe even start him up front, because I think with him, so a lot of players, maybe like a Saka, he doesn't need the confidence, he doesn't need the momentum, he's got enough momentum. Let Saka have a rest. We don't want to risk him getting injured. But Havertz, this is an opportunity for him to gain even more confidence before the City game.
Could be a great week for him, yeah.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So if he scores maybe against Lens, then he comes into the City game with his tail up. It wasn't just a pity penalty. He got the penalty. He then scores midweek in the Champions League. Now he's feeling himself a little bit. So yeah, I think Havertz, I would like to see him start. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't, because there's a lot of players who also deserve to start in those positions. But yeah, maybe stick him up front and give him a chance to get some goals.
Slightly, you're gassing me, because if there's one player that knows about scoring against City in pivotal games, it would be Kai Havertz, Champions League Kai Havertz. So you're right in that regards, man. I want to ask you a question, going back to the strikers, or you kind of said Havertz up front. Ivan Toney in January or Osimhen in the summer? You could pick one, and it's assured that you're gonna get both.
And how much would Osimhen like? And I'm not pocket watching here. I'm saying, so is it Neto and Toney, or just Osimhen?
No, just Toney or Osimhen. You get Osimhen in the summer, or you get Toney in Jan.
Then Osimhen, because you gotta look at the long term. This team isn't going nowhere. It's not like we're one and done. It's not like this is 6 months where we could win the league. This is a project we've got players for 8 years. These have still got left in them. So yeah, Osimhen, it would be a ridiculous team. And then you've got Jesus, who a lot of people will see the signing of Osimhen and go, oh, then what happens to Jesus?
Yeah, it's over for Jesus.
He can play left wing, right wing, attacking midfield.
Probably even play but just behind Osimhen as well. He might even thrive a bit more, because he's not having to be the target man per se.
That's what I'm saying. He could play anywhere on the pitch and he'd look like one of the best players. So I don't get this whole talk about it's curtains for Jesus. He's not going to be in the team. He will always be in and around our team while he's playing for us.
I mean, I don't know how you don't get it, because, Arsenal fans, we cry for depth. You get depth, in the early weeks of the season, the man that's not involved is all over. It's only now that generally some Arsenal fans can see why you need a bunch of players, and while you just have to let Arteta do what he's doing. For me, I don't know, because I'm with you. Osimhen in the summer, I think that's, Wenger tried to sign you, is poetic justice if you sign for our club. The only reason I might lead towards Toney is because, signings could be a boost in the season. And if there's genuinely a chance of winning the Premier League, I'm not necessarily going to care about the Summers, but I would lean towards Osimhen, man. You mentioned that Pedro Neto. Where are you at with him? Because he started the season really well early on. If we was doing player of the season or team of the season so far, he's probably going to have a claim on the left or the right.
Yeah,
really
definitely. I really like him. I used to really like him. Then he got his knee injury, and then he came back a little bit like he wasn't quite himself. He didn't quite have the explosiveness the game was built on. And now this season, he has been unbelievable. The way he's able to take on 2 and 3 players,
Playing great off the left as well.
Yeah, and that is the fact he can play both sides is really valuable. So I would love him. And given that, did we make a bid for him, or was it just interest?
Apparently, we tried to talk and see what Wolves are saying a few months ago or in the summer, and we was told 50 million. 50 million looks a bit cheap now. Yeah, man, we might have to revisit that in January or next summer.
But the fact that he can play both sides would be massive. The only thing is, maybe, and it probably, if we get him, it probably is the end for Reece Nelson, because he's basically taken that exact role. He can play on the left, he can play on the right. But yeah, it's interesting too, because Arteta wanted Mudryk, maybe wanted Pedro Neto. So he's kind of indicating that he wants another option on the left wing and maybe a
Raphinha as well. So he seems like he wants a left footer, really, which all three of them are really, and they can all play on the right, a bit like mimicking Saka. Or we talked about David Raya, and if Timber was fit, the same things we're saying about Ramsdale and David Raya, we might be saying that about Benjamin White and Zinchenko. We might be in a reality where Odegaard and Saka the same thing, and that's genuinely what you want to have. We keep using City as an example. There's only a selected few that historically have started for City, the Diaz's, the Kevin De Bruyne's, and things like that. And even them, they've Bernardo Silva, for example. But even times they've been on the bench in big games. I think people need to remove themselves from like it's a set 11 and really truly understand that we need a squad, we need different options. Of course, if you're playing out of your skin and you can't be dropped, the manager wants to win games, so you are going to play. So it's a bit of a techie one, man. And I'm keen to see, because I think if we could sort out centre mid, if we could get someone to compete with Saka, if we could get a different kind of striker and anything else Mikel Arteta wants, genuinely, I want to win a league, but I think we have to be ready when Pep Guardiola leaves City. I still think they'll still be up there, but they've got a great club with a generational coach. I don't think they'll have quite that. So we need to be able to strike, and even if we can grab some trophies in a short period of time, we're laughing, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And we're at the kind of the fun stage now in the transfer window. When Arteta first came in, he had to do so much dirty work. He had to sign your Pablo Mari's just because we didn't have any money to spend on a left-footed centre-back.
Willian as well, PTSD warning.
These type of players just to fill gaps. Then we started overhauling. We started signing your Sambi Lokongas. Now we're signing starters to bench starting players. That's
actually impacting from the jump, really.
Yeah. So now you're looking at it and thinking, right, where can we improve? And we can look at any player in the market now, because for example, Declan Rice, he's a perfect example. We basically looked at defensive midfielders and said, in the world, who do you want? And we said, you know what, he's the guy. And Arteta put in so much work to get him, and we've got him, and he's made a massive difference. So they're the type of players now we can start looking at. Who's going to be our Declan Rice next summer? How exciting is that to think about?
I mean, you're right, man. If you told me 18 months ago we'd get Declan Rice, I'd say get off Google page 10, and that I would not have believed Declan Rice. Sometimes I see Declan Rice in an Arsenal shirt and I'm like, is this really happening? I think the only time I really deep that we actually signed him is actually when he scored against Man United. It's like, okay, cool, you're here to arrive now. Great player, he's a great 6. He's flirting with. I don't want to get hung up on a number 8 and all of this stuff, but just adding more layers to his game in an Arsenal system. With the greatest of respect to West Ham, what you do at West Ham and what you do at Arsenal, it got you in the room, but you need to do a bit of a different role in it. It's more creme de la creme. My last question for you, obviously, the month's just done. Who is your Arsenal player of the month?
I think it's just hard not to say Bukayo Saka, isn't it? Like he's just that guy. When the chips are down, he's bagging. When the chips are up, he's bagging. We've had 5 penalties this season. He's only taken 2. I actually thought about it the other day. He'd be top goal contributor in the league. He'd only be a goal behind Haaland, I think, if he'd taken all the penalties. Which he
needs to start taking them. I need them FPL points, bro.
Because he would be ending the season on 20+ goals if he was taking penalties, which is crazy. It's just Bukayo Saka. Yeah, he's so important to us. I almost wish he wasn't at times, because we look at it, and if he gets injured, we'd be in not a great position. I do think Jesus can do a job on right wing, But this is why a Pedro Neto signing is the next stage that we need, or a Rafinha type signing, so we don't rely on so much one single player, because he'll be playing tomorrow. I have no doubts he'll be playing tomorrow, and then he'll be playing the City game and the next game, and he'll get his 100th Premier League consecutive game, and we'll all be celebrating, but at the same time thinking, like, what's going to happen when he's 25, 26? This guy's going to be dead. But it's a testament to him. It's a testament to his character. He's that guy for us, and he will retire as an Arsenal legend and probably one of our best ever players. And I'm grateful that we've got to witness that, and I've got to watch him so often live. So, yeah, player of the month. He'd probably be player of the year again. I think it was actually Ødegaard last season, right?
Yeah, Odegaard, really. But they probably just had to give it to someone else. Didn't Saka win it 2 years in a row or something? It gets a bit boring, really.
He'll probably get it this season.
England player of the year 2 years in a row as well, for that matter.
He's the guy. He's the guy. And it's funny because, yeah, we've been saying it for so long, and rivals are now starting to put their hands up and say, you know what, he is that guy. He's doing
all right for a left back, for the rival fans. He's doing all right, man.
And like when Arsenal start winning these titles in Champions Leagues, what can they say? They have to hold their hands up and say, all right, fair enough, you may have some good players, because it's reached that point now.
I think, I'm in two minds with the Saka stuff. I think, when you look at Cesc Fabregas and Wayne Rooney, and Saka will do well to be mentioned in world football by the time his career is done like them. But when you look at the amount of football they played from a teenager, no, it's not quite the same for Saka, but to kind of how I don't want to say they fell off early, but by 32, it was kind of done for Cesc, Rooney kind of as well. That's something that you want to mitigate against. But then again, I always look at, when I think of Saka, I think of Salah in an example of, their right wings, their talisman. These players have to play, and this is the circumstances. I don't agree with it, but unfortunately, if you're a top player for club and country, you're looking at 60 odd games, and we all know the crazy calendar last season. We all know the lack of break these footballers get. There's a Euros next year. Well, yeah, actually next year. So we're going to have to mitigate against that. And that's where you would love to see Reece Nelson wake up one day and look like he's a Bukayo Saka, or bring in a Pedro Neto, or the next Bukayo Saka coming for our academy, but they don't come around too often. Do you know what? Last question, yeah, just because it's a bit harder. Who would have been your most underappreciated player this month in terms of performances then?
You know who I want to go? Because I guess it depends who you speak to, but Gabriel. Because he comes in.
This is why I knew you as my guy,
He comes in, he does his thing. No one talks about it. Every game against Bournemouth, he made a beautiful block. He's doing this every game. He's a colossus at the back. And everyone loves Saliba, of course. He's a little bit more elegant in what he does. But Gabriel is so important next to Saliba, because he's willing to do the dirty work. He puts his body on the line. And yeah, he's one of the big reasons we haven't conceded a goal away from home this season. And you go into any away game and think, yeah, I'll just ride out for this guy because I'm not concerned. This is
facts.
Is one of the reasons why our away form is so good, because he's just a rock. And I almost wish he was spoken about. Not that it really matters, because Arsenal fans know how good he is, but he should be spoken about with the top centre-backs in the world, because he really is. And even Brazil's stubborn manager eventually gave in, and they've started selecting him for Brazil. So, yeah, he will always be my guy. I love Gabby. And, yeah, probably the most underappreciated of our players at the moment.
And even that, I think the only knock against Gabriel is he is prone to moments of madness, but so far they haven't been seen, and he is getting them out of their game. It's almost like having two sons, like, not to knock Saliba, but Saliba does get away with murder in terms of Gabriel. If Gabriel makes certain mistakes that I've seen from Saliba, people onto them. Not to knock Saliba, he's great. I just feel they're a perfect combination. That, as you said, Saliba's more elegant, he's more patient, he's more gracious. Gabriel's almost like, it was more of an aggressive front-footed guy. I don't think he's appreciated for, like you said, away from home when our back's against the wall, just general performances. I also don't think he gets enough credit for his build-up play as well. He kind of becomes a left-back/centre-back. He is quite aggressive, trying to punch those balls through the middle of the park. And I think, as you said, in terms of potential, obviously Gabriel, he's not as gracious as Saliba. He hasn't quite got the stardust of Saka and Ødegaard. But when we're talking about potentials to be this, whatever people want to say, I think people sleep on Gabriel. I think it's great business for 30 million, man. So I'm happy to have this, man. I'm sure you are as well. And I think the most beautiful thing is these players are nowhere near the finished article. We are going to have some bumps and bruises, as we've had for the last 2 years, but it's amazing, man. Let people know where they can find you. Obviously, all your information will be all your Twitter stuff will be in the description. I meant to say, I thought it was on Twitch for a sec, but yeah, man, let people know they can find you, my guy.
Yeah, just Twitter at AFC James with an X instead of the A, because that was the only app that they allowed me to have. But yeah.
I've wondered why that's that,
Well, look, I'm sure I could have found a different app, but it was just AFC, then James. And then James wasn't available, so I've gone, right, what can I change that looks a little bit similar, stick a little X in there. So yeah, I'm just doing my thing on Twitter, keeping it ticking, basically, just waffling about Arsenal mostly.
Nah, keep it up, man. Keep it up. I do like to see you engaging in banter with rival fans, man. As usual, appreciate you for being on my channel. As he said, you know where to find him. His information will be in the bio. So yeah, my guy, let me let you get out of here and enjoy your evening, man. One love for tuning in. Appreciate that. Like, comment, subscribe, follow everyone on all the socials, people. We're out, man. Love, my guy. Safe.
Always just that active red light, defending.
I've been given.